We all know them, we all love them. Hot rods, they've been around forever, and today we're going to tell a story of how they started. It happens with Model Ts, then it goes into Model As, then that's where you get your 32 Deuce. It actually inspired basically every facet of car culture today. We got our boys Jimmy Hilton and Felipe Armenta. Let's do it.
I'm ready to hot and ride.
In March 1952, the brand new National Hot Rod Association published a promotional pamphlet called The Hot Rod Story. The promo claimed hot rodding was, quote, natively American as baseball and existed, quote, in villages, towns, and great cities throughout the United States, wherever American youth manifested an inordinate interest in automobiles. But not even 10 years prior, the term hot rod was derogatory. The hot rodders it was levied at were considered menaces to society. It was hard to imagine it would ever go mainstream, but hot rod culture eventually managed to take the country by storm. Today, hot rod culture might seem almost tame, and is probably more associated with baby boomer car shows than rebellious street racers. But the engine building and custom aesthetic work hot rodders did during the culture's heyday not only kickstarted the aftermarket performance and car enthusiast media industries, it also set a blueprint for the countless enthusiasts that have followed. Today on Past Gas, it's the history of hot rodding. How did it go from essentially nothing to a major influence in car culture? How did it create some of the most ubiquitous racing series? And how does it continue to influence car culture today? Welcome to Past Gas.
Past Gas Podcast. It's about cars, it's not about forts.
Big thank you to Liquid IV for sponsoring today's episode. With all the drinks out there, you want hydration that works. One stick of Liquid IV delivers superior hydration to water alone. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code GAS at checkout. Turn your ordinary water into extraordinary hydration with Liquid IV. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using code GAS at liquidiv.com.
Hot rod boys, huh?
Oh man,
I'm hot and I'm
Say it.
I'm hot and I'm rodding.
Nice.
Okay.
That voice you hear is Jimmy Hilton.
I didn't know that if that joke was a little hot, you know.
You coming in hot, but
Yeah,
you got
coming
it.
in We're talking about hot rods.
Yeah.
Get a little spicy.
And that voice is Felipe Armenta.
Hello, guys. Let's talk about some hot rods.
The reason you're not hearing Nolan today is because he has crazy hot rod diarrhea. It's glued to the toilet today, so pour one out for Nolan. What do you guys think of hot rods?
They're sick.
They are.
They're cool. Very American, I would say.
I would say that. I think I grew up mostly like JDM scene, and the more I'm around it, especially here in LA, I absolutely have come to love like the art, the style, everything about it is so cool.
It's very unique. I grew up in Australia, so it's a completely different hot rod style out there because it's all burnout machines. So I'm interested to learn about the United States hot rod perspective.
Oh, wow. You're like an alien that we have to explain hot rodding to.
Yeah.
Almost.
I just know it's all about V8s and what is it? Yeah, flatheads.
Chrome, flames.
Yeah.
Loud.
Custom work.
Mm-hmm.
I went to our merch guy, Brent, had a birthday at a bar, and all of his friends have like old classics that are just beautiful. I love his friends. They're so knowledgeable about everything. I had quite a journey getting back into hot rods because like when you're a kid, you're like, oh, hot rods. You know, like that's one of the first shiniest things that you cling to. And then you're like, no, I want, I went through my shitbox phase. I still love shitboxes. But Chrome became kind of a boomer thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
At a certain point, like how many 57 Chevys can you look at before you're like, all right, I like other cars now.
Yeah.
But I think it's come full circle. And I think the aesthetic too, like flames on sleeves,
The white wall tires.
yeah, white wall tires. I think I'm beginning to appreciate it a lot more now. And I would love to have a classic.
Right there with you. I think for me, we were lucky enough. We shot at Bruce Myers's garage. If you're listening and you're not familiar with Bruce Meyer, he just big car dude. He sits on the board of the Peterson, has an insane collection, and one of them he has a couple like 30 what is it, the 432 Deuce?
32 Deuce, yeah.
Just like OG hot rods, but the more the hand painted flames on those. They have one of the ones that he has an old Ford GT motor in it from like the first development. So I'm like, oh my God, this is the more I learned about it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and the style elements, like chrome.
But are those like? It's not like a very fast car, right? Like it's more of like a
32 Deuce.
Yeah, but like if you're putting like a crazy engine in there,
I want to say that one is kind of stupid fast.
Okay, so that one's built more of like a racing.
Yes.
Because I do feel like some of these are more of like this is more of a show car.
I think that's the beauty
like
of
this one's
hot
more
rods.
of a race car.
I think we get into it in this is like they're the performance guys and then like the show guys, and sometimes they meet in the middle.
Yeah,
but like if you're ripping your car, you can't be too precious about scratches.
No,
exactly.
Yeah. Got to scratch that chrome.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, I know. I was just saying. I mean, dude, Ford V8 in a Ford racing V8 in like a cool show cars, very cool.
Yeah,
to me.
Race car.
When you find that
anything.
the middle line of both those things, of show and race, it's very cool.
And I think that's what makes hot rodding. I think. Well, we're going to get into it. But there's a world now where sometimes it's like, oh, what engine do I want? Well, I want to go drifting. Well, a 2JC with this turbo, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But hot rods is like, nah, is it cool? Is it loud? Let's slap it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of like amorphous as far as like eras. Because like you're taking a car from 1932 and maybe you're putting an LS in it or something. And then you're using style that has been evolved throughout the years.
Yeah.
So it is kind of an amalgamation of just like everything car guys love.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, well, I'm eager to see where this, because I don't follow hot rodding culture that closely, but I think it's...
You don't subscribe to Hot Rod Magazine anymore?
No, dude.
They still print that?
I think magazines, are they coming back? Or magazines?
Magazines?
I think magazines are coming back.
In a way, right?
Yeah,
I feel
I
more
like
people are
printed
publishing.
media.
Yeah.
I do like printed media a lot.
The only magazine I subscribe to is Bon Appetit. And I'm so excited every time it comes, but then I never read it.
Oh, nice. A new souffle just dropped.
Dude, the new souffles don't knock them, man. All right, let's get into it. The history of hot rodding begins not at racetracks or in the pages of magazines, but in junkyards. In the early days of the automobile, so much as seeing a car was a novel experience in certain parts of the country, never mind owning one.
That is crazy to me to think about.
Isn't it?
Like, back in the 30s, like, people were like, what's that going down the road?
It's almost like PJs now, where it's like, oh, damn, like, he can afford a private jet?
Yeah.
Oh, true.
That's like wild to me.
Yeah.
me, it's
Because
like
now just cars are everywhere.
Yeah. Like, I got this, like, junker horse in my stable. Looking to replace him one day. I don't have the cash right now. For most that did buy a car, modifying it was the furthest thing from their minds. It was a new and exciting technology, and still an unfamiliar one at that. Why would you modify it? What would you do? Where would you even start? I mean, that is a good point. Like, you would pay a coach builder to build the housing of the car.
Yeah.
You get the platform from a company. It's so new that you're like, it's like me trying to like tune an EV. It's like, what am I going to do?
Exactly. And I'm like, how confident are you? I think at the time, like this, I just bought this thing. All right.
Yeah.
Should I take it apart?
It's got wooden floors. I don't know what to do.
For the first people to wrench on their cars, they were really beginning from nothing. It's less like asking what musicians inspired Jimi Hendrix and more like asking, how did the first guitarist decide how to play the guitar? In this case, there was really no better place to start than the Model T. The Model T democratized car ownership when it was first introduced in 1908, and they quickly took over American roads. By the mid-1910s, junkyards were crawling with them. This made them cheap to buy, and the amount of parts available were practically endless, much like the LS platform today.
I'll give you a nickel for your Model T.
Oh, is it a Buffalo nickel?
That's a different story.
Look, I know what I got.
Nickels.
The first modifications were simple. To save weight, unnecessary body panels like fenders were removed, and the interior was often gutted. For the engines, the fuel compression was raised and the higher flow carburetors were installed. Some of the more extreme examples saw the cars stripped to their essentials and were basically bare chassis with bucket-like seats and a fuel tank.
Yeah, those were the whiskey runners probably, huh?
Yeah, gotta make cavities for all your whiskey. The trend caught on, and by the late 1910s, businesses like Offenhauser, which we just did a Pass Gas on, dedicated their entire business model to go-fast parts like high-flow carburetors.
Hell yeah.
Not long after, more extreme custom work like engine swaps started to catch on for those interested in more organized racing events.
This is 1910?
Yeah.
And they're like already talking about engine swaps?
Well, it's as soon as you like get something that can go without you pedaling it,
yeah,
you're like,
I
mine's
guess.
faster than yours.
I love that because, yeah, to your point, Jimmy, I think this is like in the span of 10 years, people are already doing engine swaps.
Yeah, that is
That's
crazy.
Crazy to me. Does my 2J fit in this Model T?
Other more aesthetic modifications also started to catch on around this time. Cars were being lowered and enthusiasts began gravitating towards the more expensive, lightweight, and flashy wire wheels to replace the stock wood wheels of their Model Ts. Of course.
Yeah.
Come on, wood wheels.
Wood wheels?
You hit one dog and your whole car is nerfed.
You imagine driving a car with wood wheels around LA. 405 alone.
You went to K-Town, not good, dude.
Yeah.
Hit a pothole.
Not a good day to be a wooden wheel.
If you're like in the woods or something off-roading and then you break a spoke, you could just take a branch off. And
I just fashion one.
Quick real estate tip. Don't buy wood wheels. Don't buy wood wheels.
Yeah, termites are destroying my business. These early modified cars were first called speedsters and later gow jobs. Gow being 1920s slang for opium.
What?
The amount of jokes that live in that sentence. Okay.
Interestingly enough, this reference is from racehorses who were often given opium to perform better on the racetrack.
What?
It's also where the term souped up comes from, if you didn't know that. Referring to a cocktail of drugs or soup given to a racehorse before a race. These cars were hot rods in everything but name. Stripped down cars with modified engines, personal visual touches, and a generally poor reputation with the public. Some things never change.
Never.
I bet you Thomas Shelby from Peaky Blinders.
Oh, you know he was doing a gow job on all his cars. Also selling the opium, too.
Yeah. We Peaky Blinders, we got the gow job.
Arthur! I love that show.
Movie's coming out soon.
Is it?
What?
You know, I still haven't
They
seen
announced it.
I still
They
haven't
announced
Never
their-
seen any episode?
No, it's on my wish list. It's
so
on my
good.
watch list.
So
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Put the subtitles on.
Okay.
Pro tip.
Yeah, subtitles are necessary.
Pro tip.
The first time I watched it, I didn't have subtitles on. And I was like, yeah, I think I know what's going on. Second time, I was like, oh, now I understand exactly.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they announced they're in production of the movie.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, so good.
By the early 30s, the scene was ready to take a leap. More advanced cars like the Model A were starting to fill junkyards in the same way that the Model T once had, and an engine that would forever change the American automotive landscape, one now synonymous with hot rodding, was in the pipeline at Ford.
Ooh.
Big thank you to our sponsor this week, Chime. Summer should be fun, not financially stressful. With the Chime Secured Credit Builder Visa credit card, it's easy to start building credit with everyday purchases and regular on-time payments with no annual fees or interest. You can use your Chime card everywhere Visa credit cards are accepted. You can build credit using your own money. With Chime, you can get paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit. Isn't that convenient? 2 days sooner? Ooh, wee. You also get fee-free overdraft with SpotMe. You can overdraft up to $200 without fees with SpotMe when you set up a qualifying direct deposit. I think this Chime Secured Credit Builder Visa credit card is a super convenient option for those of you looking to start building your credit. With Chime's secure credit card, you can improve your credit scores all summer long. So get started today at chime.com/gas. That's chime.com/gas. Chime feels like progress. The Chime Credit Builder Visa credit card is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A. SpotMe eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Out-of-network ATM withdrawal and OTC advance fees may apply. Terms and conditions apply. Go to chime.com/disclosures for details.
Big thanks to Liquid IV for sponsoring this episode of Past Gas.
Summer is full of big plans and lofty adventures. I was just in Vegas. I could have used some of this stuff right here. With all the drinks out there, you want hydration that works.
If you can't drink water by itself because it doesn't have any flavor, you're in luck because Liquid IV has a bunch of different flavors. My personal favorite is white peach.
One stick of Liquid IV delivers superior hydration to water alone, with 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, plus 8 vitamins and nutrients. It's hydration for endurance, mental clarity, and overall well-being. Thank you, Liquid IV, for sending that stuff over. So, it's pretty easy. You just take your packet, mix it into a glass of water or a water bottle, and you're good to go. It's super easy, guys. Turn your ordinary water into extraordinary hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code GAS at checkout.
That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code GAS at liquidiv.com. By the early 1930s, the Great Depression was in full swing. It touched nearly every aspect of American society, and the automotive aftermarket industry was no exception. The industry had grown dramatically through the end of the 1920s and eventually included more advanced upgrades for engines like the overhead valve conversions. These were side valve engines.
Got it.
Oh,
Less efficient.
Okay, that makes sense.
I wish I could look at a catalog of what were these aftermarket parts back
I
then,
know.
you know?
Yeah.
It'd be like in the back of the Sears.
It's like a cup holder, a chrome cup holder.
A windshield.
Door handle.
But virtually overnight, many of the companies that primarily focused on these expensive mods were going belly up since their products were no longer practical purchases for a mostly blue-collar consumer base. Speed seemed like it would be the next casualty of the Depression, but in 1932, Ford threw enthusiasts a lifeline.
I think I know where this is going.
Jimmy, your head's looking a little flat today.
Oh, are you saying I got a flat head?
Yeah. The Flathead V8 was a game changer. As the first mass-produced V8, it made it power accessible in the same way that the Model T had made the car accessible. But for as revolutionary as the engine was, it was modest. It displaced only 221 cubic inches, which is 3.6 liters, and made a measly 67 horsepower.
Probably still a lot more than a Miata.
Well, it's like almost half a Miata, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
But what, you lose like what, 1 horsepower a year you lose, I think?
Is that what
that's
they
a
say?
real thing?
I think they talked about that on Top Gear.
Just based off like corrosion and
Yeah.
wear.
Oh, that sounds like a Jeremiah investigation. Yeah, a V8 making only 67
crazy.
horsepower.
Yeah, yeesh. That means that my Z is probably like 120 horsepower now, because it started at 160.
We should dyno all of our cars. I would love to know how much my car makes. I'm guessing 40 horsepower.
The
or
Fit?
maybe 80
The
horsepower.
Fit?
80 horsepower sounds right.
Yeah, probably.
Hmm.
The 1.3.
Dude.
This thing's a 3.6. This thing's probably an absolutely massive engine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if you think about it, it's probably just...
Well, I keep thinking because when we had that LSX, it's so tiny and I just can't... Like, every time the Ranger fires up...
Yeah.
I'm like, how is this thing? This thing's insane.
It's like there's like a thundercloud
Yeah.
in the garage.
But
So
like
now-
they probably couldn't machine a piston to be like that
Oh, the
complex
tolerances.
back then. Yeah.
Yeah, the tolerances are probably like not great.
Primitive V8s. That's cool.
Yeah. They also had straight eights back then.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Straight
Bring
eight.
back the straight eight.
Bring back.
But the Flathead engine's strengths laid in its output potential compared to other engines at the time and a low cost. Prices were kept down by casting the crankcase and cylinder banks as a single piece. And the engine retained the aging side valve design that had existed in 4-cylinder powered Model Ts for nearly 20 years.
Interesting.
Yeah, I can't believe it's all one piece.
As with the Model T, the Flathead didn't start making its way into modified cars in significant numbers until it started showing up in junkyards. One of the most popular cars with this engine was the Model A Roadster. The car went on to become a hot rod icon. If you were to ask any doofus on the street to describe a hot rod to you, there's a good chance this would be the car they described.
I feel like
Myself included.
American pickers, you always see them. They're like
Yeah.
they're like going through this like crazy wooded like collection of things, and they're like, "Yo, that's a Model A Roadster.
Don't look now.
I'm gonna lowball."
Yeah. My therapist, Model 8 doesn't exist. It can't hurt you. The Roadster's popularity was thanks in large part to enthusiasts in Southern California who preferred the drop tops for the warm, sunny weather. And it was here in SoCal where hot rodding would eventually find its footing and create a sport all on its own.
That's really cool.
From the beginning of the gow job era, custom cars were often used in amateur racing. Early records point to races on horse tracks in the Midwest as some of the first examples of organized events between gow jobs. In Appalachia, these tuned cars had another use, running moonshine and evading law enforcement during Prohibition.
Whoa.
As you might already know, this led to NASCAR.
I love that story.
Yeah.
That story.
So cool.
It's just the most American thing, you know, like
It's just too cool.
enterprising, super cool, evading law enforcement. It's just, yeah.
Yeah.
In Southern California, amateur racing really got its start on dry lake beds. As early as the late 1920s, enthusiasts began to meet at Muroc Dry Lake and do timed runs over a defined distance to see who had the fastest car. Soon, drivers were racing head-to-head, and from these races, both land speed and drag racing were born. Sick.
Dude.
I've never been to a dry lake bed.
Really? Neither
you?
have I. No, I've always wanted to go out to...
I thought you've been for when you went and did the Dodge video at SEMA a while back.
No, I wasn't on that shoot.
Oh, that was a fun one. The,
You were there.
Durango. No, I
Durango,
didn't get to go on that one.
Challenger and Charger.
And Durango won all-wheel drive in the dirt.
But I've never been... I know Nolan has... Nolan.
Yeah, I love hearing his stories about going to the dry lake
Yes.
bed. Also, it's crazy to me because last time he was there, it was like flooded.
It rained out. Yeah, I remember that.
And he was like, yeah, the water like came up to my like knee.
Yeah.
Like,
I get bummed when like my baseball games get rained out. But if you're like prepping for the whole year, you drive all the way there, you're spending thousands just to get there, and then it just like rains and you can't do it.
Yeah.
That sucks.
That's my thing. I've always, since I watched, I guess it's roughly around this time, but motorcycles, The Last Indian, when his journey to get to the Bonneville Salt Flats.
Great movie.
Yeah, that's why it's still on my bucket list.
Yeah.
I need to tag along with Nolan one of these years.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that movie.
In the late 1930s, a governing body for dry lakes racing known as the Southern California Timing Association, or SCTA, came into existence thanks to hot rodding legend Wally Parks. Parks has come up time and time again here on Past Gas, and his influence on the hot rod scene and American motorsport cannot be overstated. Parks was born on January 10th, 1913, in Goldtree, Oklahoma.
Don't you know?
But moved to Southern California. It's not Midwest. Like basically Texas.
First thing that popped in my head.
Yeah. But he moved to Southern California as a child with his family. He got into cars while in high school, where his mechanics class stripped down a Model T in a sort of hot rod project. From there, he was hooked. And by the early 1930s, he was organizing races on the Salt Flats.
Grease Lightning.
Whoa!
Is that where they got the story from? Well, I'm just saying that's like the story for Grease Lightning. They're building the
high school thing.
Yeah, it's in high school. Yeah.
Danny Bonaducci or Danny, what's his name? Danny something.
Yeah.
Danny Zuko.
That's also rad because I feel, I don't know, imagine walking into class one day and you're like, today we're going to build a car.
Yeah.
That'd be stoked.
Let's go. Let's hop in the bus, go to the junkyard.
Did you guys have that at your school?
I didn't. I think Zach for sure. I think he did in high school. He told me some crazy stories.
There was a shop class. I, for some reason, didn't do it. I did like theater tech instead, where I built sets, which I still like building stuff.
They had one at my school, Palisades Charter High. They had a 65 Mustang Fastback. But they were trying to get the funding to bring the class back.
I see.
And they were so close to getting it. And then they couldn't do it.
Damn, that sucks.
But the Mustang had been there since they stopped. They had the classes going since the school opened, and then they stopped them. But the Mustang had always been there. I think it might still be there.
Damn, that's
I don't know if they're still doing those classes, but I mean.
I know the Peterson has a Viper that was built by students.
Yeah.
And it's still sitting there. I don't think they're allowed to sell it, or I think it has to get
a lot of
crushed.
those like weird cars that they just like couldn't sell to the public. I think most companies just donate them to schools for shop classes.
If you were a teacher, what car would you have your students build?
Miata. Why is that even a question?
Why did I even ask? Why even
It's
bother?
the easiest car to work on.
Wally is affectionately described as, quote, the father of drag racing by the Motorsports Hall of Fame, and is really worth an episode all on his own. If you guys would like to see that episode, let us know in the comments. We'd love to do it. In the coming years, organizations like Parks SCTA would help popularize hot rods beyond what anyone at the time thought possible, especially with what seemed like to be an ever-declining reputation. At the end of the decade, in the cities and towns across Southern California, enthusiasts also formed carb clubs with names like Roadrunners, Throttlers, and Sidewinders.
That's some cool names.
Yeah, dude, that's rad.
Get a silk bomber jacket with that?
Yeah.
Sick. They mainly existed to share knowledge, trade parts, and find others to race, often on the street. The street racing that was sometimes occurring was souring public opinion, and the media was quick to latch on to high-profile stories involving accidents. But both the scene's growth and its declining reputation were put on hold at the end of 1941 when the U.S. entered World War II. For the next 4 years, racing in the U.S. was effectively banned thanks to rubber and fuel rationing, and performance cars were locked away at home as their owners shipped out to join the war effort. Tale as old as time.
Yeah.
People going to war, young guys coming back.
Yeah, you always see the movies. They're like, when we get back, I'll take you cruising in my 532 Ford Roadster.
And then you know that guy's going to die once he says that.
You're like, oh no.
Yeah.
Billy!
Hey, you know what? I know I'm coming back, but could you hold on to this note for my deer just in case?
This show is brought to you by BetterHelp. It's hard not to compare yourself to others. Heck, my entire life has been defined by it. As they say, comparison is the thief of joy, and it's easy to envy other people's lives. It might look like they have it all together on their Instagram, but in reality, they probably don't. Take it from me. It looks like I'm living that car guy fantasy lifestyle, but when I go home, I watch YouTube and eat a bunch of cereal just like everybody else. I'm not gonna lie, guys, life can be tough, but you know what? A really great tool for that is therapy. That's right. Whether, it's in office or through a service like our sponsor today, BetterHelp. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So stop comparing yourself to others and start focusing on yourself with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/passgas to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/passgas.
World War II quite possibly could have been the end of this enthusiast scene, but if anything, it actually helped it grow. Marines, soldiers, and sailors alike would regale each other with stories about their own cars and local car scenes to pass time. Legend has it that it's through these conversations happening in foxholes and on the decks of ships in every theater of war that the term hot rod began to spread.
I think it's also important to mention that, there's probably a ton of, airplane mechanics, tank mechanics who probably went into the war and they were into cars and they, probably helped make those probably run a little bit better than...
Oh, yeah. So much was learned in the field as you're doing stuff that you're like,
yeah, I'm
going to put this to use when I get back. According to Wally Parks, the first time he ever heard the term was from a guy from San Luis Obispo, Nolan's stomping grounds, while serving in the Philippines, and similar stories can be found everywhere. It's believed that the term itself was derived from the popular Flathead mod of installing hotter cams. The new hot cam was referred to as a hot rod because it's rod-shaped.
It's a rod.
Got it. That makes
And the
sense.
definition eventually expanded to the cars themselves.
I never thought about it. I truly never questioned where it came from.
Yeah, hotter cams, hotter
Hey,
do
you guys want
Get
to
your
sure.
hot cams here, hot cams.
hot salted cams. For many enthusiasts away from the front lines, the war effort also provided a platform for technical training like fabricating and welding.
Dude, I'm talking about it. There's always that guy in the movies who's
Yeah.
like, I souped up the carburetor on the plate.
Yeah.
It'll run about 10 horsepower quicker.
This came in handy for custom fabrication and bodywork when they returned home. At the end of the war in September 1945, the hot rod scene was one of the first places GIs turned for fun. The barrier of entry was very low. The most popular cars were cheap. There was also a ton of extra metal from the war effort that could be had for next to nothing. Their pockets were full thanks to cashing years' worth of checks that they weren't able to spend while deployed, and the economy was booming, which is where the baby boomers, that term comes, hot rod baby boomers.
Get your hot rod baby boomers here.
Nice salted baby boomers. For these returning GIs, there was no better place to celebrate peacetime than behind the wheel of a hot rod.
I mean, a bit of a dream, dude. You come back, you have a pocket full of cash
Yeah,
and a
that is a dream.
garage. Damn.
I mean, that still GIs nowadays come back and they buy a Mustang.
Camaro, Challenger.
Camaros, Challengers,
Hellcat.
Harleys.
Word of mouth had spread hot rod culture across the U.S. during the war. Not only did the longtime enthusiasts pick up where they left off, but a new generation of enthusiasts took to the streets. But as quickly as the term and idea of a hot rod spread between servicemen, it spread just as quickly among the general public as a pejorative. Hot rodders once again found themselves the target of publications across the country and were painted as antisocial and dangerous to society, thanks to several highly publicized stories of hot rodders racing and injuring innocent bystanders.
Uh-oh. SpaghettiOs.
I'm going to bring it back. I had to Google pejorative.
Yeah.
I will be honest. It's like disapproval. Whoever's listening, obviously you understood within the context, but that's what it means.
I did pause when I saw that word. I was like, I don't know, one, how to pronounce this, and also, two, what it means. The scene still somehow managed to grow throughout the mid-1940s despite the bad publicity. And a guy named Robert Pete Peterson was about to set the scene on the path to becoming mainstream. Mm-hmm. Regular listeners might remember Pete from episode 206. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. I honestly didn't know what to think from that story going into it, but he was highly influential, as we'll get into it. In 1948, with the help of Wally Parks, Pete founded a publication called Hot Rod Magazine. It was one of the first enthusiast-focused magazines and a bold move considering the reputation of hot rods at the time. But it was an immediate success and helped jumpstart the scene's mainstream appeal. To launch the magazine, he and Parks put on the first ever hot rod show, the Hot Rod Exposition, and the Automotive Equipment Display in Los Angeles, which is what I think turned into SEMA.
SEMA?
Yeah.
Oh.
The pair sold 10,000 copies of the magazine over the course of a few days and brought attention to aftermarket brands like Edelbrock.
Edelbrock, dude. SEMA stands for Specialty Equipment Market Association.
There we go.
Jimmy.
It all started in a very grassroots fashion, with Pete and a few of his coworkers selling the magazines out of trunks of cars and in the stands at drag strips. But the magazine eventually made its way around the country, and within 10 years, Pete had created something of an automotive media empire with magazines like Motor Trend and Rod and Custom, which I've never heard of before.
I think it's crazy to think that these guys, like, they just met. Like, there's no internet back then. There's no way to, like, contact someone. There's probably no names in a phone book for, like, hot rodders. Like, just to think how these guys met. Like, it just had to be by chance. And then this just spawned this whole cult following of crazy cool cars.
There's something I learned from doing so many episodes of Past Gas, and that, like, the scene was very small back then. Mm-hmm. And he rubbed elbows with literally everyone that became a legend. Mm-hmm. And Carroll Shelby would pop up in a bar, and, you know, like, a European F1 champ would be there as well. Yeah. Like a young guy that would go on to be like a top mechanic or designer or something. It was really crazy.
Just, got to appreciate all the people you meet, man.
Yeah.
All of them, dude.
Yeah. Don't ever, like, pass over someone because they might be the next Carroll Shelby.
Yeah.
Or the next Jimmy Hilton.
By the early 1950s, it's not a stretch to say that everyone probably knew someone with a hot rod. In 1945, there were an estimated 3,000 hot rod owners in California. But by 1952, that number was estimated to be as high as 30,000. Tenfold increase in about 7 years.
That's a lot of cars.
Impressive.
The scene was changing. Ford's Flathead V8 was on the way out, and the legendary Chevy V8 was on its way in.
LS swap the world.
But designs from the 30s still made up a majority of hot rods, as there had been a substantial pause in the new car development during the war. The mostly blue-collar scene had yet to buy into the latest V8s en masse, but the aftermarket performance scene was exploding. Aftermarket performance brands featured prominently at hot rods shows like the one put on by Parks and Peterson, and horsepower was more accessible than ever. A popular aesthetic mod of the era was taken from land speed racers, the chop top, which owners would cut the roof off, trim the pillars, and weld the roof back on for more of an aerodynamic look.
The Let's. That is one of my favorite parts of hot rodding. I think maybe because I love Metallica, but I know I'm blanking on his name, the lead singer.
James Hetfield.
James Hetfield. I know James Hetfield has an impressive collection, and the roofs on those cars are nearly gone. They're so cool.
And he has a bunch of like matte black
murdered
black,
out, some purple
cool.
ones. He has some beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
They had it at the Peterson Museum for a while.
There was a Metallica, maybe it wasn't Metallica. Maybe it was given away by Metallica by Omaze, but a matte black.
Yes, it was one of his personal vehicles.
Okay, I was like, in my head, it was like a Metallica edition AMG GT.
Oh, but I think you're right. I think they did some collab. It was kind of whack.
That's still cool, though. Yeah. AMG Metallica? I don't know. I think that's cool.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'll take an AMG GT all day. But I think just the nature I don't think Metallica, and I don't really think AMG GT.
I know. Yeah. That is like Venn diagrams that don't touch.
But I guess I do now.
I will say it's crazy that like people were just like, I'm just going to chop the roof.
Yeah.
But like that's a mod. Like you hear people today, they're like, my build's, I'm just going to put some coilovers, do this, and build's done. These guys are like chopping the top. Like, I got to do this. I got to like drop all this stuff out.
I think it was, like we mentioned, like a bunch of scrapyard cars. And I don't think cars were meant to last that long back in the day. Like if you talk to people in our parents' generation, they think 100,000 miles is a lot.
True.
It's true.
We think of, like we reconsider cars on Craigslist that have 200,000 miles, but we're not like disregarding them.
I mean, our Tacomas have how much? 400,000 miles on them?
Something like that.
Yeah. And our Civic had originally 500,000.
So I think they're more disposable in this way.
That is true.
At that time.
Mm-hmm. And I do think just all the fabricators, all the people that learned things while they were on deployment, come back. You have all these skills now, and it's like you have time.
Yeah. I fixed a B-17. I know how to chop a top now.
Exactly.
But the general public was continuing to get more afraid of the cars that seemed to be everywhere all of a sudden. Elected officials were responding to the fear, and in the early 1950s, tons of local and state governments alike were working on legislation to effectively ban hot rods from the roads.
No.
It looked like it might be the end of the scene, and it would need more than broad appeal to win acceptance. If the big American manufacturers were increasingly responsible for putting power in the hands of the everyman, and a combination of dangerous behavior from a few enthusiasts and fear-mongering by the media were responsible for the hot rod's poor image, Wally Parks was mostly responsible for easing fears and promoting safety. In 1951, Parks founded the SCTA-inspired National Hot Rod Association, or NHRA, to regulate drag racing as a sport and promote closed drag strips as a place to race over street racing. Shortly after the NHRA's founding, drag strips were popping up all over the country. But Parks didn't stop there. He was committed to getting kids off the streets and onto the track, arguing they needed to be guided, not demonized.
Dude, I love that.
That's really cool.
I think we're living through that right now with street takeovers.
Yeah, and the problem that our drag strips are all disappearing now.
Yeah, they're closed. In 1954, Parks, NHRA, and SCTA partnered with Pete's Hot Rod magazine in a safety and public relations effort called the Green Cross Sticker Campaign. They organized safety safaris as part of the campaign, in which groups of hot rodders toured the country together and stopped in towns and cities to teach drag racing, organization, and safety, and to get racers off the streets and onto controlled racetracks. The campaign worked, and hot rodding entered its golden era.
That's so cool.
It was also around this time hot rod historians note a blurring of the lines between two sides of hot rodding that had managed to stay mostly separate from one another. The high horsepower drag racers and the custom fabrication and aesthetics focused enthusiasts.
This is what I was talking about at the beginning.
Yeah. The accessibility of organized racing spurred this movement. People from both sides met at the drag strip, and soon form was meeting function on both sides.
Yes. I love that. I love to see form and function
together. Yeah.
Hot rodding, all coming together.
Yeah. The guys from the front page of the magazine are meeting the guys from the classifieds in the back. You got hot rods? Hit me up. The NHRA and hot rods also had an effect on car culture at large, as drag racing became the de facto form of racing between enthusiasts in the new United States. Even today, whether you drive a Camaro or Kia, people are more likely to race at their local drag strip or gun it between lights than take their cars to a circuit. By the mid-1950s, cities and towns nationwide were crawling with hot rods, and an entire aftermarket performance industry had risen to meet demand, setting an industry blueprint that's followed even today. Hot rods and drag racing also made it to Hollywood, with tons of movies from the era featuring them. Less mainstream and more racing-focused movies like Hot Rod Gang and The Devil on Wheels were also released. They targeted a younger demographic and left a whole new legion of enthusiasts in their wake. But as the 1960s began, the hot rod was on its way out. The horsepower race it had inspired in Detroit was culminating in more cars leaving the factory in a performance trim, and big V8s were finding their way into cars up and down the spectrum.
This is when we're seeing Camaro, and you spec out that motor
like your
into that
Camaro.
Pony cars, muscle cars. This is like the beginning of that.
The Yankos of the world.
Got it.
And actually, John DeLorean, who was like super young at the time, had to convince, actually did it kind of as a skunk works kind of thing with a GTO.
I was going to say, I remember that story. It's insane. He fought so hard for that car.
So hard, and then just had to like find a back door way of doing it where it was like a dealer high-end trim for like a small car. And you could get a big V8, and that was like finally appealing to young people. Because at this time, sorry to get super into this, but like late 50s, early 60s, everything kind of was tame, and like every new car coming out was kind of seen as like a grandma car, safe, not super fast.
They didn't have seatbelts though still.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Dude, the child seats, when we were doing research for like testing all those old products from back in the day.
Yeah.
Child seats from back then. It was just wire. What do people do?
Yeah, it's like a cheese slicer for your kid.
Come here, mozzarella. Sitting.
The final wave of hot rods finally featured the new generation of Ford and Chevy small blocks, thanks to, as you might expect from their predecessors, lower cost availability thanks to examples ending up in junkyards. Style was just as important as speed in the early 1960s. Cars featured a variety of carpets like shag and fringe, and chrome was all the rage. Metallic paints replaced the candy-like colors of the 1950s, and no body style was off limits. In many cases, the stranger the look, the better. Thanks to Hollywood TV car designers like George Barris, hot rodders of the 1960s had plenty of strange concepts like the Munster coach for inspiration.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know this one.
Oh, I know Wacky Racers.
Yeah, Wacky Racers. The hot rod was dealt its final blow in 1964 with the launch of the Pontiac GTO and Ford Mustang. The pony car and muscle era had began, and hot rods seemed dated by comparison. It was no longer cool to have a hot rod. That was your dad's hobby.
Boo.
Boo.
It's a very interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because now like muscle cars are like not only dad stuff, but like grandpa stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do feel like hot rodding did lead to like probably like funny cars and stuff. And
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
all the other stuff.
And
from
I
the
think
60s.
so much of it's like especially like the fussy dyes, the aesthetic element of it. A few years ago at the Indy 500, we got invited into the Penske garage, and I noticed all the suspension components were chrome. And I was like, why are these chrome? Like, what type of material? They're like, no, it's carbon fiber, but Penske likes to wrap it in chrome.
What?
As an homage to like old school days.
Wait, for the race cars?
For the race cars, yeah.
Oh.
Just
Whoa.
just kind of like the front, just suspension, whether you have a push rod or whatever, all that stuff is wrapped in
cool.
chrome. Yeah. I was like, that's cool, dude. That's American as hell. That's sick.
That's like a part that you wouldn't normally see unless you were like really looking for it too. Going back to like dad hobbies kind of thing, I feel like Japanese tuner cars are like dad cars now.
I do feel that.
Yes.
I do see that a lot. I feel like, it is like a... I do feel like it's... If you like old Japanese cars, like the 80s ones, like an A86, like that's a dad car.
Yeah.
You know?
Even now, I think like the early or late 90s, early 2000s, just I think...
Yes.
But is it more dad now because of the attainability of it?
No, because like historically, well, I guess grandpas would have the most money.
Yeah.
But like, I think it has to do with price point in the way that like maybe dad cars nowadays are like the Hemi 300C. like the Chrysler,
Yeah, the
or something like that.
Joseph.
Yeah, Joseph. Like things that you can buy for 20 grand, but like the era that we love, like 90s Japanese stuff, you can still get for 8 grand. You know,
I think so. I just
grand.
feel, I don't know, based on my current Craigslist windows that I have open, Del Sols are so expensive.
Del Sol, man.
Yeah.
I feel like even the cheap stuff that I'm like, this could be a fun weekend project, and even just finding parts for some of these cars is just a little crazy right now. But yeah, that is interesting that just hot rods became uncool.
Yeah. Because then, like, I
That's
think
so sad.
I think they had a resurgence in the 90s. Like when Chip Foose.
Chip Foose?
Yeah.
Like when Chip Foose, his designs started becoming popular, which eventually led to the retrofuturist movement.
Yeah.
They were cool in the 90s, like when Guy Fieri was like hitting his peak,
that's true.
and flames were still cool. And then in the 2000s, everyone was like, no more flames, no more chrome, please.
The PT Cruiser came out and everyone was like, what?
Yeah.
What is that? But I feel like it might be coming. I mean, you look at our E36
PT Cruiser,
Chrome and
3 more
flames.
years, it'll be back.
collector's item.
Guarantee it.
Flames are in their third wave of like retro coolness right now. Today, what we see in our mind's eye when we think of hot rod is still very much of a time and place, but hot rodding itself never really went away. That's because the history of the hot rod is really the history of car enthusiast culture in America. Its legacy can be found everywhere you look, whether it be engine swaps or body kits. From Hot Rod Magazine, we got Super Street. From The Devil on Wheels, we got the Fast and Furious. And from Edelbrock, we got Gretty. And because of hot rods, Americans are just as willing to drag race a Civic Type R or M3 as they are a Mustang. The hot rod scene today is still thriving. For some, they're still a getaway into car culture, and for others, they're a link to the past. Hot rodders are everywhere, and seemingly always eager to share their car and its story with others, and museums like the Peterson exist to celebrate them. Hot rods don't just exist at small-town car shows, but in every car touched by an enthusiast. Hot rodding goes far beyond Flathead-powered 32 Roadsters. It's every car that's loved enough by its owner to make it their own. It's a great sentiment.
Yeah.
That almost made me cry. 'Cause
Yeah.
I feel like it's true.
I feel like we're
So
all
true.
connected to hot rods in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like that sentence. It's true. Like without Edelbrock, we wouldn't have Gretty. I think about the cars that you see in Japan now. I think it's
Yeah.
Daigo who
Yeah.
has that Hakusoka with the NASCAR motor. In
Yeah.
it.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
yeah, like truly, hot rod has just it still lives everywhere in
Yeah.
the world. It's just
Yeah.
different,
I mean,
really cool.
there's so
ways.
many. Like Veilside is very. I think the guy who started Veilside, he was very. He loved all the
hot rod.
1950s.
I mean, Moon
Yeah,
Eyes.
Moon
like-
Eyes. I was
Moon
going to
Eyes.
Yeah,
say.
Moon
like-
Eyes is now Japanese owned.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was an American company that dealt in hot rods. Japanese company bought it, kind of repurposed it, and now it's being appropriated by like JDM fans. And
Yeah,
I-
such a cool company.
I love that. I love that.
I went to the cafe in Yokohama.
Really?
Yeah, they have a Moon Eyes cafe.
damn,
was
that's
it?
like your mecca right there.
Yeah, it was great. Had a good burger.
Had a good.
Oh,
burger.
nice.
Yeah.
How were the fries?
Yeah, they're good. Yeah.
Not great. I'll still take
You should still check it out though
Yeah.
if you ever go to Japan. Moon Eyes Cafe.
Well, that was an awesome story.
Epic.
It's always fun to get back to the roots of everything and
Yes.
see how like the family tree branched off into all these different subsects.
And it's crazy to see that something that was so driven by junkyards, and now you
Yeah.
have companies like Singer, who it's pristine. You could eat off the floor warehouse.
Yeah.
where they're building hot rods now. It's
Yeah, they're like custom fabbing things in
Yeah.
autoclaves with carbon fiber
Insane.
and stuff. And
Insane.
And I think it is also like, we're seeing like all these people, in the military too right now with like 3D printing technology and stuff like that. And now they're putting it into automotive stuff.
Dude,
Yeah.
I personally believe that we're going to enter like a new stage of modifying and hot rodding when you can print at home your own body kit or just design your
It's
own body
really
kit and then
crazy.
order it for an affordable price.
Yeah.
Things are about to be pretty cool again, I think.
Yeah. I wonder if there's like a future where we could print carbon fiber at home.
I think so. I know there's companies now, which like blows my mind. A few years ago, went to the motorcycle whatever show they do downtown, which
Yeah.
is similar to the LA Auto Show, and they had all these 3D printed parts of a bike, and then you see the bike is fully assembled, and it's like one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen.
That's awesome.
Fast forward now, you can design your own things, and there's companies that will just print it for you, send it to you, and you have these high quality. They're still very expensive, so I guess the day will come when it's affordable.
But you can do whatever you want. And
exactly.
I think that's like the ethos of the hot rod culture. It's like, make it your own.
Make it your own. Go crazy. I love it.
Mm-hmm. So we got some listener mail. Jimmy, do you want to read that?
Yeah, I'll read this listener mail. Hey guys, big fan of the channel and podcast. I've been watching since the very first donut video, and I'm a big fan of the Money Pit series. I'm a history buff, and Past Gas gives me my automotive and history fix in one. I've been in and out of the automotive industry for about a decade, and I love it. If you had to erase one car from existence, what would you choose? American, Japanese, or European?
Felipe, do you have one?
The older I get, the more accepting I am. I feel like some cars, like I don't understand them. I think when I was young, I saw it the other day. I'll use a present car example. I think the new Hummer EV, I don't understand it. I could probably do without it if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But I know it's someone's, flavor. That's someone's favorite flavor out there. So.
That's one you really don't see around a lot.
No, not really.
Like LeBron James has one, and I don't know anyone else who has one. But
you know what? I could do without G35s clapped out. Because sometimes in the middle of the night, people...
Yeah.
I'm going to get a lot of flack for that.
No, dude, I was going to say Hellcats.
I think we can all attain that.
I was going to say Hellcats just because I live near an on-ramp.
Yes.
What is yours?
Oh, man. I don't know. I think it would be a Cybertruck.
Oh.
Whoa.
You would GG the Cybertruck.
Yeah, GG. Get it out of here.
Interesting.
I live near, a very nice area that's for cruising, and I always see them everywhere, and they're just massive. They take up half the road. I hate it. I feel like if I'm in my little Miata, they're not going to see me.
That's what I was behind one in the Money Pit Miata the other day. I couldn't see anything ahead of me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I hate this stupid truck. Well, Jimmy, it sounds like we need to get you a Cybertruck.
Nope, I'm good.
See what you think.
Nope.
Well, yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube, drop in a comment which car you would like to see erased from existence. It's a little bit more negative than I want to be because I think all cars exist for a purpose.
Yeah.
But, I still love Hellcats. I think, if anything, I just want to, sleep in earlier in the morning.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I still want a red eye.
Yeah.
I still dream about a red eye.
Mm-hmm.
And I think all cars are cool. So I wouldn't like to just delete
I think you
one.
should get rid of the on-ramp near your house.
If I blow it up, I'll blow it up. Anyways, that's our show. Thank you, Jimmy Hilton. Where can they find you on Instagram?
At russelljimmy.jp.
And Felipe Armenta.
Thank you, guys. You can find me at Phil Armenta on Instagram.
Thanks again, Joe.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for being on. I had a lot of fun. And if you haven't subscribed this is your first time watching, welcome. We do this every week. We got 2 podcasts. The other one is called The Big Three. It's more just like news focused. That's it. Thank you for watching.
Hit
Bye.
the buttons.
Bye-bye.
Hit the button.